All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless me here talking real music in real time for a few real people out there just like you and just like me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching these videos. And before I get going, I'm going to be talking about the band Warrant. Yeah, something a little bit different. Um, I've got some questions for the music industry when it comes to what happened to Jani Lane. And yes, Jani Lane had a problem with alcohol. But before I talk about that, I want to showcase this. All right. If you haven't heard Blood Red Saints, holy crap, Batman and Robin. This is their album Undisputed with tendencies to sound a bit like The Outfield, Danger, Danger, and Journey. Yeah, I mean, this is just a work of art. It could have been my number one album for whatever year it came out, and I was shocked at how many people just ignored this when it came out. It just, I mean, this is the music world now. So, again, I'm just telling other folks where to find great music, and it's Undisputed by Blood Red Saints. Now, what's interesting about their name, it doesn't really match their sound. So I think that might be a problem for them. Blood Red Saints kind of sounds like a death metal band or something, but it's not. It's not. So anyway, great melodic music. And the band Warrant in the late 80s, I think, was a better band than several of these bands that are out there still touring, like Quiet Riot and Skid Row, which we constantly hear about Skid Row all the time. I think Warrant had better musical instincts. They appealed to both men and women, and they had Jani Lane. And Jani Lane was a great singer, but Jani Lane passed away in 2011 at just 47 years old. Here's the story about what they say are the last days of the cherry pie guy. Now, again, to just to make the band, this is the thing I really have a problem with. The Don't Stop Believin' singer, the cherry pie guy. I mean, what? Everybody has to be reduced to one song, right? Warrant had a bunch of songs that were on the radio, both on rock stations and on top 40 stations. And they started really in the mid to late 1980s. And I want to emphasize when they started and, of course, what happened next. So here's the story of Jani Lane. Back in 2011, Lane checked into the Woodland Hills, California Comfort Inn. He was accompanied by the demons that haunted his life, often causing him public and private humiliation. He was ashamed of his afflictions and would allegedly hide out in nightly lodgings, sometimes eluding his problems, other times indulging them. Ultimately, the demons got the best of him. Only 47 years old, Jani Lane was found dead on August 11th, the same year, that's 2011, leaving behind him a wife, 2 daughters, and 2 stepdaughters. His death came as a shock to the rock community, though to some it wasn't entirely a surprise. His business manager said he'd been falling off the wagon for years. Anybody that knows him knows that this is nothing new. You'd wonder if you're going to get that phone call. Despite the foreboding, his business manager, Sharon Chambers, doesn't believe that Jani was a man intent on real self-destruction. He went to motels to sober up. I spoke to him the Tuesday before. He was in pretty good spirits. He had things he wanted to do. Unfortunately, drinking always got in the way. He wanted to get back on track. He wasn't just a client, he was family, which is pretty cool. The once bright future of the former 80s rock star began to dim in the 90s when pop metal anthems of this platinum-selling group Warrant were eclipsed by the likes of grunge. Yeah, lackluster sales label troubles and unpredictable lineup changes plagued the band in the 90s, culminating in Lane's eventual departure. Now, again, this is opinion. This is my opinion. What the 90s did to 80s music is unforgivable as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion. You may disagree. You may think that was an evolution. I've always said, okay, well, we could have had both, right? Why couldn't the stuff from the 80s still be promoted? And the stuff from the 90s can just compete right alongside it. And you'll say, well, but it did, and the 90s won. No, it really didn't, because radio stations weren't adding the 80s stuff that was still coming out in the 90s. They were favoring this other music because the record labels had decided it was easier to promote this stuff for whatever reason. They thought the 90s were supposed to be about, righting the wrongs of the 80s with all of that misogyny and stuff. I get that, all right? But there was plenty of misogyny in the 90s, all right? If we want to use that word. I mean, the music really didn't change. You just, in the sense that there were still certain things going on behind the scenes, and the drugs of choice changed. But imagine being this band that sold millions of albums in the late 1980s. And then by like 1993, you can't even get a gig. Like, who are we going to send you out with? Soundgarden does not want Warrant opening up. That would be really stupid. Yeah, you're right. It would be totally stupid. But you could still have Warrant over here. What happened was the industry made all of this music super uncool. So if you said in like 1995 that your favorite band was Warrant, you would be laughed out of any somewhat pleasant conversation. And people would be like, dude, come over here. Let me show you what's really going on right now, with a stack of Stone Temple Pilots albums or whatever else, they're going to tell you is the thing you should be into. There were a lot of people that were alienated from the music world at that time. So imagine being a guy like Jani Lane. I'm not saying this is why he had this substance abuse problem, but this was no fault of bands like Warrant. They didn't do anything wrong. They set out to make this kind of music. It's like your job description is changed halfway through, not even maybe, I don't know, a third away through your career, your viable career. I get it. Some bands have like a 10-year, maybe 20-year shelf life. Other bands go on for a lot longer. But if you're telling the world that the music that you're making is stupid and cheesy and nobody wants to hear it, and the big hair stuff is over and the flannel shirts are cool, that might have been true. But the problem is, again, why force people into a style of music? A lot of people just say, you know what, I'm just not going to listen. I know a lot of people in the 90s that just, I used to listen to rock stations. I listen for a couple of songs. I hear maybe one song I like, then the next song is lousy, and then the next song starts and that's equally as bad. So I'm done. And back in those days, you couldn't go to Spotify and make your own playlist. So it was torture. We had to wait for what, the gods at the, corporate stations were going to send out. And if anything cracked through that and you were listening to that, I remember when Kenny Wayne Shepherd came out, was it Blue on Black, which was a real throwback song. I'm like, whoa, why is this on here? I couldn't figure it out how that got through. Of course, he didn't have any longevity on rock stations, but as far as the glam metal, or whatever you want to call the melodic metal of bands like Warrant, it was over. It just, there was nothing happening. Even Van Halen started to make music that wasn't as bright. It was darker. They were trying to fit in. There are a few other bands that held on longer. I think Aerosmith might have been an outlier. They just continued on, and people liked them so much that they got a pass to some degree. But by the end of the decade, they were pretty much toast. And Jani Lane, who might have had a predisposition to this type of behavior, was probably on the edge because he was huge in the late 80s. And some of the stuff was very gimmicky, very cheesy. Obviously, cherry pie. But, in hindsight, is that a song I'm listening to today? No. But that style is pretty interesting, especially because Warrant infused some classic rock stuff into their sound, and I think it made for a more enduring, more durable type of sound. And they're still going today, by the way. They have a new singer. If you haven't been paying attention, which many of you probably haven't, you probably thought that the band broke up. No, they released an album called Louder, Harder, Faster. I'm not too big on the album title. Well, they're playing to their audience, basically. And there were a number of really great songs on that record, which came out back in 2017, went out there and didn't get any airplay. They have a new singer by the name of Mason, I believe, and he's pretty good. He has brought some new life back to the band. As far as catalogs go, between like Warrant and a band like Skid Row or a band like Quiet Riot, and there are other bands out there that have so-so music catalogs that are a big deal all the time, and they're always in the news. I'm thinking Warrant probably deserves better than what they're currently getting, and certainly better than what they got in the 90s. But again, another tragic situation where you've got a guy who is on top of the world, and what does he have to look forward to? He's going to be playing another county fair, and nobody in the media is going to promote anything that the band is currently doing, and certainly not playing any of their older stuff on the radio. So, again, I may be going a little too far in this one, but I'm thinking the whole 90s grunge scene was really toxic to the point where somebody doesn't care about themselves, and they were successful. But again, you change the rules midstream, and then you're like, okay, now what? Does Warrant change into a grunge band? Nobody will take us seriously if we did that. This is the kind of music they made. This is the kind of music a lot of people enjoyed. And it's just tragic that all of that just went away. And we're 30 years out, 30 plus years, technically. I would say the whole thing really shut itself down in 92, 93, where the music industry just said, nah, this is the radio stations. We'll give them a whole bunch of product to give away on the air if they play whatever, the new Pearl Jam album, even though it doesn't sound like anything that they're currently playing. Imagine that. And yeah, it's okay. Let that compete with the stuff that you're playing. But don't make everybody feel alienated if they don't like that crap, because people like me hated it. I was listening to 90s country. That's how bad I wanted to get off that train. I'm like, no, this just isn't very good. And I'd rather listen to something with melody and lyrics that aren't dark all the time. And that's what you're dealing with. And I guess this is our culture now. We're reaping what we sowed in the 90s. That was just the beginning when it comes to music, but then every aspect of culture followed. And that's what happens. Art can sometimes inspire culture. And in this case, I think that style of music certainly brought us to where we are today. That's, again, I'm in the minority. I know. It's all good. You're supposed to like the dark stuff, the cheesy stuff. No, they don't want you. Even today, 30 years later on mainstream rock, they're not playing anything that's got melody. They're playing a couple of songs for a couple of weeks as a gratuitous nod because people went out like the Rolling Stones and they bought a whole bunch of Stones albums. But it's just what we used to call a paper ad when we were on the radio. And I used to program. I used to just say, yeah, we're playing this just to make the record label happy. And maybe we would spin the song at like 2 a.m. just to make people happy. But we weren't really playing it. We were just telling people we were playing it to make them happy. So they'll send the promos. And even though, because there were bands and there were songs that they wanted me to play that I thought were just terrible. And they'd keep harping, yeah, we really like this so-and-so. And I'm like, I'm glad you like it. I don't like it. And I don't think the audience is going to like it. But yeah, I'll add it for you. I'll put it at number 38 or something for the week and or whatever. And we'll play it. And we played it at 2 a.m. And we probably got complaints at 2 a.m. that we played it. And we wasted, 4 minutes of airtime on what the record label wanted you to do. I don't miss those days. I'd rather be like the guy who freeform programs and just gets the album and then listens to it and says, hey, this is what we should play off of this. And yeah, you want variety, you want hardcore bluesy classic rock or more glam metal stuff. All of it could go together to some degree. But once the genre shifts so much where the music doesn't sound like anything that's been pretty much mainstream for the last 50 years, okay, or 40 years. You're like, nah, I'm not doing this one, but everybody just acquiesced. The industry got bought off and paid for, and it's been that way ever since. And it's heavily regulated. It's just, yeah, this band is a little bit off from what we normally play, and we've got these core bands that we keep playing over and over again. And we've been doing that now for 20 or 30 years in some cases. And those bands don't change. They might get a little mellower with time. They might write like a ballad or something, but it's always kind of this dark, gothic, lyrically, it's going to make you feel depressed most likely, or tell a story that's depressing. Sometimes, issues can be raised during these songs that can change your view, at least that the fact the band is maturing to some degree. But man, what happened to the good old days where you just, roll the top down and crank up some whatever it is that you liked to listen to that made you feel good? That's the point of this video. And I think Jani Lane, who died, and it's been, 12, 13 years, he might still be around if the format itself had just allowed for everybody to compete and then let the best band, let the best format, let the best genre, let the best sound win. That's what you do. Let the audience decide. Don't decide for the audience. Don't tell the audience that they're uncool, because they're never coming back once you do that. And it's exactly what happened. So this band is not uncool. All right? If you like Danger, The Outfield, Journey, there's some things in here that I think will appeal to most human beings who like music. The album is called Undisputed. The band, the Blood Red Saints. So next year, just to make a brief statement on me promoting this stuff, because I've kind of gone back and forth on if I'll continue to do this. And I am going to continue to do it. I've decided just to focus on the melodic rock stuff. I'm not going to be doing too much of the yacht rock material, even though I love that genre. I'm not going to be doing country anymore. I just don't have enough country fans over here. I love country, and I still appreciate the red dirt music scene. But, some of the patrons and most of the people who watch me have said, hey, keep doing this. I've learned a lot. But most of the time, they're thankful for, stuff like this. So I'm narrowing the focus some. It's hard to keep up with all of this. I can't buy everything, and I need to buy these CDs to show them off in the videos. So again, that's why I need help via Patreon and through YouTube memberships where you get early watching privileges. And I'm doing this because I like to do it, obviously. The record labels are not helping me, all right? And I've begged, I've pleaded, I've said, I'll give you a week straight of promotions at the beginning of each video. And to have the physical CD or even maybe some vinyl, but the vinyl is hard to get in the shot. So, this is really easy to do. And if the record labels or if the bands wanted to do this and send me something, I do like a lot of the material on Frontiers Music, although this year has been a little not quite as good as last year. Escape Music is another great record label. They don't do promotional stuff, though. And there are a few others, Pride and Joy Music. So I'll be focusing on music from those labels. And I will probably buy a couple of CDs each month, 2 or 3. And people say, well, that's not that much. Well, to get these CDs, sometimes you have to pay $25, not including shipping. So I end up spending, $75 or $100 in a month. And I'm like, that's too much for me to spend on CDs. Sometimes, I can get them off of Amazon and that saves me money. But then, it's like 4 to 6 weeks for the thing to even ship out. But that's probably the route I'm going to take. It doesn't seem like anyone else on YouTube is really doing that, at least in the way I do it. There are some channels that will do reactions to new songs by these melodic rock bands, but I'm putting them into the video where I'm doing content and I'm flavoring the content with the new material as kind of like a way to get people to pay attention to the new stuff. So thanks again, though, for everybody who has chipped in this year. I'm going to need even more help in 2024. It's just the way things are. Ad revenue has stabilized, but starting to go back in the wrong direction. I'm hoping that I can maintain it in a certain area where I can do this. And if I want to buy a CD, I'll just be like, yeah, I'm buying this for the channel because I want people to hear about this music that they're not going to hear about any other way, which I guess is, unless you're subscribed to the record labels, which I would urge people to do that. Pretty much everybody has a channel and they'll put out new material and you can watch the video and you might even be able to send me a tip, right? If you're over on Patreon, that's the way we do things over there. We typically talk about great music. Sometimes we gossip a little bit, but I'm trying to be more music centric. All right, people, I have rambled for way too long in this particular video. The memory of Jani Lane, a great singer, a great band, Warrant, and they're still out there, and they still sound pretty good. So again, check them out. They have an album from 2017, and you can check that out as well. All right. God bless everyone. Please continue to pray for peace in the Middle East and around the world.